Dear friends, I'm glad to meet you all again on Feygin Live. It's Saturday, 2nd of July, 2 minutes past 10 Kiev time, and it is day 129 of this Putin's aggression in Ukraine. We're doing a stream with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to meet you, Olexiy, again. We have about 120-something thousand people watching us. Please share the links to that stream in social media, your groups, especially those who are watching that from Russia. Share it among your compatriots. That really helps to spread the data. And of course, subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and if you're watching that in English, to the privateer station. Let's start. We have the map prepared, Olexiy, but perhaps let's talk about Lysychansk and situation down there. If we can, let's address it now, because we hear different things. Russian side is saying that they already have taken it. Perhaps you can tell us more. Russian side, in the face of the famous TikToker from Chechnya, said they took Severodonetsk in 3 days. It took them a month and a half to do that. They're not in the center of Lysychansk. They have not taken Lysychansk. They're on the southern suburbs of the city, trying to do some fighting and getting a lot of fire back at them. They are gladly reviving the stories of capture because they had a little bit of their troops successfully crossed Seversky Donets, the river. And the situation is rather threatening. It will be resolved in the next day or two. We'll see what's happening there. This is not the first dangerous situation that our troops have gotten themselves into. There was a similar situation with Zolotoye, and it was resolved successfully as it can be in the war. So I do believe our troops and Central Command will use that situation to our advantage. So you're not excluding the chances for your command to withdraw the troops. I'm not excluding any versions, and the problem is I cannot discuss most of them, especially the ones most likely to happen, because this is still a tactical secrecy. All right, so what is happening in the other places, Kharkiv and the overall front? Everything stays about the same there. Two major war theaters are Izyum, Popasna, and Kherson. A very characteristic feature for today is successful work of Ukrainian artillery. Today we exploded an amazing ammo depot in Popasna. This was relatively recently captured Popasna, where they stored ammo for the group that is trying to advance near Lysychansk and to get to the road, Bakhmut-Lysychansk. They already cut it, but they're trying to hold it now. So is that successful hit related to the Western weapons? Yes, some Western armament succeeded in hitting the target. Second, we did hit another target from the same group that is approaching Lysychansk, the warehouse of transport, gasoline and oil and other things that was near the railroad. And we also had a very strong hit in Kherson region, so I'm waiting for some verification data. It looks like it's a good hit, but I'm waiting to get it confirmed first. So that's one. The other is the continuation of the story that we discussed 2 days ago, I think, when reserves have stopped coming from Russia, and they're restocking their troops by shuffling and moving troops from one part of the front to another. So they're taking more from Popasna, throwing them to Lysychansk. They're taking them from Izum, throwing to Lysychansk. And they're doing a maneuver with the available troops alongside the front line, which is a horrible idea for the offensive maneuver, but is pretty good news for the defending side. And it appears that in the nearest future they will be trying to solve their tactical goals with whatever troops they have, and whatever they got, it's very basic. The story about this ammo depot explosions is that we hit about 8 of them recently, and if you extrapolate to a month or 2 months, the count will go into dozens. And we essentially here hit it and blew it up right before they were getting ready to advance. So these operations, they do change the pace of this war, and it shows that Western weapons that we received are indeed helping us to change the character of this war. One of the strongest feats is when the defending army can destroy supply lines for the offending. And we just started basically doing it again a few days ago. So, what is happening in Kherson? Mostly artillery fighting. I would say mostly in our favor, because we are shooting them down or stopping them, and all they can do is literally shoot us en masse and try to hope and hit us somewhere. While in our side, on our side of troops, we actually have a much better targeting systems. Our artillery detachment essentially is equipped with an intel support, and they're much more accurate. The proportion of troops fighting on the front is very different. Let's say on Russian side there's about 1,300 howitzers, about 1 per each kilometer, and for the whole front line. On our side we're roughly at about 200 of them. This is an open number, so I don't need to hide it. But even with that, we make them sweat quite a bit, even when we spend only 1 shell per 15 of theirs. Imagine the situation when we double the amount of howitzers, and then it'll be 400 for 1,300, and even in that proportion, they'll be real tough for them. Even one Western artillery unit works in combo with intel and other components. So, is our Western artillery things better? Yeah, they are. The quality of barrel, the quality of shells, the quality of other equipment. This is a comparison between Mercedes and Zaporozhets. We need to understand, so valid question. Just checking, what if I have to shoot it once? So, understand, dilemma is the same. Weapons, and new equipment arriving changes the front line, changes the consequences. Lysychansk dilemma will be, for example, understood in a couple of days, so we're not doing the show on Sunday. By the time we get together Monday, we'll see where it led to. So, what is the threat for leaving Lysychansk? What if they took it? It's not a threat. What even if they got to the border of Lugansk district? That's it? Let's try to continue that. The line will be on a longer front. Actually, Mark, it will be going on a narrower front because they'll have to concentrate their troops in small parts of it. And that protrusion that we have right now near Lysychansk is not exactly helpful for the defensive party. It makes sense to hold it only as long as the advancing offender is losing more troops than the defenders do. But otherwise, these things are useless. Germans were pretty successful during the Second World War. They were leaving these protrusions on the front, waiting for Red Army to try to encircle that, and then they hit them with heavy armor in the back and took them in a kettle and destroyed them. So, and then later in 45th, situation changed dramatically, but 1943, 1944, that was one of their favorite maneuvers in Germany. We do not use these maneuvers so far, and for us the best and biggest is the ideation of the enemy. What are they planning to do? So imagine they take Lugansk and Donetsk regions, then they have the flat front line and they need to storm our troops head on. And what happens when they storm our positions head on? When a very much tougher group than the one they had near Popasny is trying for about 90 days to take 3 villages. And they can't, because head-on storms end up pretty bad for the attacking side. With the density of the anti-tank fire that we have, we're probably second army in the world with that, but probably some people are saying fourth. Okay, fourth. With that density, it's impossible to proceed. And then let's take a look at Donbas cities that they need to take. Bakhmut, Tokaretsk, Konstantinovka, Drushkov, Kramatorsk and Slavyansk are all big cities. Not all of them, right? Slavyansk and Kramatorsk are big. You know, Drushkovka and Konstantinovka are very comparable with Lysychansk. Is Kramatorsk comparable with Severodonetsk? It actually would be even bigger, depending how you count with the industrial zone, but it has its own industrial zone, and it's right now actually an unofficial capital of Donbas, with Donetsk taken by Russians. So they need to take 6 cities just to take half of the Ukrainian territory controlled by Ukrainian government from Donbas region. And they're all connected with the defense lines. So if they've been taking that long with Severodonetsk and Lysychansk and spent everything they had, imagine how much more forces will they need to take those cities. It's impossible task for them. They see their task to speed up and try to steamroll over all of that. Mark, what steamroll are you talking? They're barely crawling. They need to refill from Russia all the time. They already did 4 or 5 times because they've been destroyed 4 or 5 times over. And they need to move their troops within that group on the front to obtain some of the success. With the army they have, they'll have to waste themselves, refit themselves, and waste themselves again, and still not achieve any success. They'll be trying to use artillery, aviation, but the problem for the defensive side will become much. The front for the defensive side will become much shorter. Look at our front now. It's more with the protrusion. It's much longer. It's more difficult to defend. The way it will become, it'll be much easier, and they will not have enough tank battalions to even try to cross it. So no. We have about 300,000 people watching us live. Those who are joining us, I have a big request. Please share links to that stream. post in your social media, Twitters, Instagrams, Facebooks. Subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych. If you're watching that in English, please subscribe to the Privateer station and leave your like. Each like helps at least 10 other people to see the link to that cast. So, all right. There was another story with Minsk and Belarus. He is trying to draw attention. He's saying one thing, then the other things. Yeah, some people are joking that he is in some sort of sexual slavery to that nude Russian dude with tits out. But the idea that Lukashenko is stating generally can be described as we don't want to attack nuclear missiles only because Poland asked something from NATO to put there, and we are tracking all the points where from Ukraine might or can attack us. What points? Can you tell us more about his position and these words as a Belarus terrorist? Yeah, I was declared a terrorist by Lukashenko's regime, and actually not just some regional terrorist, but more like a central committee that has a case against me. So I want to say Lukashenko needs to maneuver, and he needs to maneuver around Vladimir Putin, showing him that he is ready to attack. It's just there are objective, real problems that prevent him from doing that. So Putin's patience is probably running out. Okay, let's take a look at Putin. What can he do with Lukashenko? First thing, probably kill him. Right, but the problem is this decision doesn't help to control the military. Well, second, maybe remove him from power and give reins to somebody else. Well, that's also problematic because, as Churchill said, every war is too complicated to let military just do it by themselves. So, no, that's not a good solution. Another version. What else can we do? Well, maybe, I don't know, give him some money, convince him to do something. Oh, okay, so third is to negotiate and convince. Yeah, I don't know, what can he promise him, and that it can be in the real political solution option. So Lukashenko will be maneuvering about military maneuvers, about demonstrations, possible attacks, possible nukes placement. But as our general command said, there are no signs of forming a strong military group. And without that, there is no opportunity for Belarus to do anything across our border. So all they're doing is literally drawing attention and providing additional political pressure so we keep our troops on the border with Belarus. And, it's like the story from Second World War when Richard Zorge told that Japan is not going to attack USSR, which allowed USSR to bring a bunch of divisions from the eastern side and throw it under Moscow to change the critical situation there and kick Hitler out. So that's kind of what they're doing here. And he's showing Putin that, by the way, look, we cannot attack them, but we are holding their troops. And in a way they do, because we have to keep some troops up north, and they're resolving that situation for Belarus. Yes, they are holding our troops busy. And imagine, I don't know the details, perhaps we might have started to ship some of the troops from Ukraine, from west to east, but I don't know the detail, but that could have caused more rhetoric, more screams from Belarus. Also screams about possible missile hits and nuclear hits, maybe, to just anything to make us keep more troops on that northern border. So there's that. Okay, I see the reason now. We've been 20 minutes live. We have more time, okay. Now let's talk about Kherson. If not the Crimea Bridge, first, what I want to say is that people are leaving that area and they're sending me different stories. Some are trying to leave through Crimea. That's the only route because that's where they let you go. And then make you take videos on the blog posts and tell stories that they were living in Ukraine. Ukraine was a horrible place to live. So people are saying that while they do that in order to survive, they may face some repercussions later in Ukraine after these statements become publicly available online by Russian army. So what do you say will happen to them if they come back? Oh, no, that is not a reason for any repercussions to our citizens, even if they come back without any documents, and we can still help trace them. So those who flee Kherson by some weird route, they can still come back to Ukraine and appeal to all these statements that Russians may become public? Yeah, sure, we're fine, and actually I'll tell you that there are some countries like Switzerland who are helping to bring some of our citizens back. Okay, Switzerland is a good country for that. Also, with the history of its role in the world. Also, for talking about counter-advancing maneuvers of Ukraine and Kherson, what are the perspectives there? Well, Mark, it is difficult to speak about perspectives in the options in the regions that are part of the national secrecy due to military operations. Okay, let's not talk to that or about that or what? Well, let's talk in broad brushes. That deadly little animal will finally get to Russian army that they will not expect. And then those little rabbits will start running away by those two bridges that they only have as a connecting means to the other side of the front. And what do you think Russian command would do? Well, depends. They may blow the bridges up and leave them to die, or maybe they'll let them run. And what do you have? Do you have any terms about the referendum? Well, they have been talking about something by the end of August, but another thing, we will not let them do any referendum there. They may have been they may have announced that, but there will be other things precluding them from doing it. And my major line here is that this group is doomed. They only have two bridges that are used to supply that group. So what are they relying upon? Well, they're hoping that we'll be busy with the east, with other parts, so we'll have not enough on the Kherson front. And they likely will do some counterattacking instead. And basically in Kherson, they're doing the same thing as we're doing in Severodonetsk. And they're just hoping that their defense will be successful, that Ukraine will fail. All these dreams. And then there'll be maybe 5 HIMARS systems that will get there and will close that question completely. You think 5 of them is enough for that little puny right shore group that they have there? Yes, more than enough. So I don't understand. But Oleg mentioned 300. What if we spread 300 all over the front? How much do you need? Well, no, he's talking about 300 all kinds of, that's all-inclusive, all kinds of MLRS systems. And some of them that they were given to us were very similar to Russian Grad's checkmate systems. You cannot say it's all 300 HIMARS that we'll need. But, and this is a beautiful weapon, very strong, very powerful, but it's not the only tool that we need. 300 HIMARS is kind of the number that US would have. Maybe a little more than that, but ours will be a mix of different ones. And what is Kherson direction? Kherson front is a place where our aviation is making strikes at. So you know there is an anti-air system Tor, very on Russian side. It can be masked more successfully because it doesn't protrude too far from the contour of the vehicle. It can detect the target, it can hit the target, it's pretty modern. And today, one of those was destroyed by our jets. And this is a great success because usually the interaction between a plane and the anti-plane system ends one way, unless the plane is a stage 5 plus, very modern, very something advanced, made by the West. So this plane was not. This was a pretty regular. And that just tells you that since it's beaten Tor system, that basically is the level of preparedness and professionalism of Russian army and general success on that front. So we will be growing our group, and they will be trying to grow their group on Kherson front. And between growing and trying to, the difference is a big military catastrophe. And you also know that according to some data, no, I cannot say that, sorry. It's too early. Please say. No, I can't. You know, like that joke, dear Commander, please trust me a new government secret because I've already spilled the yesterday's one. All right, got you. 27 minutes we're live, 340,000 people watching us. Those who are joining us, please, those who just joined, 40 other thousand, please leave your likes. We already have over 100,000 likes. Links to that cast, to that stream, please share in your media, in chat rooms and discussions. And don't forget to subscribe. Feygin live channel is approaching 1.6 million subscribers, so it's important to continue going. Olexiy Arestovych is also an important channel to subscribe, and the privateer station needs your love as well. Now, let's talk about prisoners of war. I understand 150, 143, 144 people were exchanged. We saw an interview with Tyra, the real name Yulia Payevskaya. She was talking about horrible conditions at DNR, or DPR, Donetsk Donetsk People's Republic. So what's the perspective, you think? There are a lot of questions sent by relatives of soldiers who became prisoners of war. Do you see any perspective? Let's separate perspective from goals and tasks. Goals and tasks are simple. Return them all. Perspectives are difficult to discuss because it's very delicate. Remember, we stopped talking about that when there were people that they captured or who surrendered at Azovstal, and we're working, we're exchanging soldiers, exchanging bodies where we can, and the task is to return them all. 144 is a lot. That's a big number. Yes, it is a big number. Can you name an approximate number of prisoners that Russian side has? No, I can't. I know, but I will not. Is it known? Yes, it is. You're the war, you won't. Okay, but that number is known, of course. Why am I asking this question? Because there is some manipulation going on. As always, there are some people showing up who show that they have some activity, that they can do something. I personally know that's impossible because it's in a completely different reality. Those people who are singing you about courts and other legal systems, just spit on them. Are they appealing to the independent Russian legal system? Yeah, well, kind of. Let's go and sue them and do the legal process. That's profanity. Russia has no free courts. It's a complete gulag all over again now. The other thing is that the Ukrainian side is probably putting proper efforts into that, and indeed you can get them back by exchanging prisoners. Is that all you can say? Right. I can say that we know how to change prisoners, and a direct proof that we do is facts like this when hundreds of them come back. We're basically putting Russia in the terms when they cannot not exchange prisoners. Because of you have Russian prisoners? Well, because we know whom to exchange and how to do that. So for that exchange, 144 people that were swapped, were there any special things that Russia got in exchange? No, it's not about things. I mean, like sanctions or anything? No, that's not on the table. These are just operative maneuvers of some people. And frankly, we know the interests of certain people, and we exchange certain concerns, address certain concerns of these people in exchange for our troops. So, for example, would the factor of Kadyrov people getting in prison? Yeah, they definitely are noticeable figures, and they're very interested in exchanging their own troops, and they can find right keys to Russian systems to swap their troops for Ukrainians. So the value of a Kadyrov soldier in prison is higher. Oh yeah, absolutely. There is definitely a disparity, and I don't know how other Russian troops or Donetsk and Lugansk Republic soldiers, even for an officer of Russian army, it's much less of a chance to exchange them. But for Kadyrov soldiers, yeah, when they get in prison, they usually find ways to return them. Special services and pilots. So those three categories that are easier to swap. And all that mythical stories about Russian soldier being valuable, all that folklore in the media and stuff in Russia, that's fake. They don't care about regular soldiers. Okay, so speaking of Kadyrov and his detachments, anyone who gets captured from people close enough to him, almost immediately there is a certain option for negotiations that pops up. Do they approach you and say, hey, we'll solve it on the Russian side? Or how can you describe that? Well, between the fighting sides, it's not a secret, there is always some communication. Is it direct or through some third parties? Different kinds. Direct, third parties. On the battlefield, they've always been direct exchanges on the battlefront, and that was here at the beginning of the war as well. Some people were exchanging prisoners right during the war fighting, and you don't do it now. Well, it's just less amount of soldiers we have now to swap because of the nature of the battles. It is usually the city fighting that gives both sides new prisoners of war, because fighting in city you cannot control the front. You know, 2 minutes passed and you're surrounded and you can't even do anything. So the only way is to really give up and surrender, and there's no attack or blame in that. It happens, it's war, both sides face that. And then Intel works with them. They talk with prisoners, they ask questions, they gather data, and they know how to also contact the enemy and make them an offer that they cannot refuse. All right. Because in Russian public networks there are some scandals, it probably initiated by somebody. Well, okay, we can talk about that. There are two different approaches. We, first of all, exchange or request our women and wounded soldiers from prison, because it is much harder for them to be in that prison, wounded and women. Whom do Russians exchange? They exchange valuable assets. They exchange Kadyrov troops as representatives of a certain clan configuration who can pump the situation one way or another. They're trying to get their pilots because it is a very valuable military resource, and they're also taking intel people and special services people because this is a very elite society, community that is trying to get their people back. But tankers, artillery officers, soldiers, they don't care about that. On our side, we don't care who you are. We only taking, by the necessity. We check first. We take those whose health is very dire, who needs help to recover. They don't care about things like that. That just reflects their values in prisoner exchange. All right, I understand. So, about the commanders of Azovstal, is there a perspective to bring them back? It's not zero? Of course, we'll be exchanging them too, and likely they will only give them back for somebody valuable, and sooner or later we'll get them. We'll get those valuable. I would even say more that no, cannot say that. We will manage. After the war, Mark, we'll tell more details. Some people think that our show will be over when we'll only be able to say victory and the war is over. No, actually, there is so much more data that we can tell after the war. It probably will last for months, and there'll be 1.5 million watching us live easily, because there are magic things in military and economy and special services fights and different ways of warfare that were tried during this war, different options that were used or not used, operations that were prepared and were forced to be cancelled, and the ones that happened but nobody expected them. That's why some people in the commentary are leaving that will probably not end ever. Like, we'll start it now and likely continue for another 20 years. Well, we have enough topics, right? Depends upon how the war is over, because after that there'll be more topics to discuss. And this war will be over, the war in Russia will start, right? Oh yeah, and wait, there'll be Ukrainian peacekeepers. Actually, that's not that's not impossible. Well, not only not impossible, they likely will actually be called if that thing happens. Frankly, to call Russian peacekeepers for Russians, some part of Russians, right? Some part of Russians. Of course, because who else? Danes? Brits? Other Europeans? Well, yeah, Ukrainians will be needed to create a different additional threat. Because imagine Putin all of a sudden dies, and they'll become their own interests, their own sides. Each of them will be rooting for certain things. They'll be just like after the Second World War, Beria, Malenkov, Kaganovich, around Stalin's death. Let's swap sides, Mark. I'll interview you. Well, it's still war, right? No, just one question. Imagine if Putin dies, what will happen? It'll be a similar thing, okay, what happened in Stalin's death times. Just like some of the movies showed, those people could have agreed. who were around him. If Stalin himself would create a certain hierarchy, these people could have figured a way to continue. If he did that hierarchy, if he worked that out, neither Stalin nor Putin developed that. Neither Stalin nor Putin left successors. Stalin did not do that either. He planned to live forever, not literally, but being on the 8th decade or 70-something, he was old enough, he had issues with lungs, he had a problem with hand, and he was still smoking and believed he would be doing all right. Why did he not leave a successor? Because he actually was thinking to clean them up, to kill them all. Khrushchev, Beria, and all these people, they knew that they'll be executed. So that movie that Khrushchev, Bring Me the Car, basically is about that when they saw him in trouble, in peril, lying there in a puddle of piss, they refused to even approach him and said, the comrade Stalin is resting. So they just let him die, and that's likely what will happen with Putin. And after that, they'll be running like in that children's game when kids are running around the chairs, and they'll be trying to fight for that chair. I was, back in my childhood, I was pretty successful in that game. I always could grab one. But these guys, according to their wishes and their desires to create new situation, a new personal Putin from a collective Putin, there'll be some fighting, of course. There'll be different interests, and they cannot come to an agreement. Putin was a successor to Yeltsin, but he does not have a successor. So if that happens in his 73 years, 72, it'll be the same. Because he made the same mistake. That is very imminent for the types of systems that he is running, which basically says there cannot be two Putins, and the successor of Putin can only be Putin. And he'll be figuring to the last moment who could that be. Maybe leave everything to his daughter, but daughter is not ready for that. And then she's got a husband whose last name is Zelensky. That's the whole other story, and that's Russian mentality and tradition that there'll be inner fighting. There'll be a stagnation of the situation overall, and it'll lead to that. There always is a chance for some phenomenal situation, unexpected historic zigzag, and it can be anything. It's hard to prognosticate here. He can just go bananas and maybe use tactical nuke. That's hard to prognose. But if everything will continue going as it is now, this colossus will be getting heavier and heavier, and likely will be related to the health of the leader. So, and there is no other way to prevent that. He needs to leave power in order to prevent that, or be ready to, or announce that he will, and he's the successor, and he won't. Very likely won't. But we'll have a lot of chances to talk about that. We've been 43 minutes live. Tomorrow we will support Olexiy Arestovych in his vacation day, and on Monday we'll continue. As usual, we'll have another stream, and tomorrow Feygin Live will have other guests, so subscribe to that channel, subscribe to Olexiy Arestovych, and subscribe to the Privateer station, and please share links to that video in social media. Thank you so much, Olexiy. Thank you, Mark, Kostya, and all the people helping us. See you all on Monday. Goodbye. Good luck.